Welcome to Quant Spotlight. In this interview series from the CQF Institute, we ask leading quants to reflect on their careers, the skills needed for quantitative finance, and to offer their views on the latest industry developments. Today, we are joined by Samit Ahlawat, a seasoned portfolio manager with a prestigious career at firms such as J.P. Morgan and Bank of America. Samit earned his master's degree in numerical computation from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and has dedicated his research to AI, risk management, and algorithmic trading.
I am Samit. I am a portfolio manager at QSpark Capital Management. I build strategies, trading strategies, mostly specializing in US equities and derivatives. Um, Before that, I have worked on asset management in JP Morgan Chase and previously at Bank of America. All those roles were mostly focused towards asset management. They were dealt with in different products. But I have worked with a range of products from credit derivatives to interest rate derivatives to stocks and derivatives and US equities.
Focusing on the latest trends in quant finance, what are the latest advances in quantitative finance that practitioners should focus on?
There are two major trends. The first one is the idea of risk harnessing. As interest rates are now about to fall, and there's still some uncertainty about inflation. Typically, portfolio managers make their portfolios neutral to different factors, like size factor, interest rate risk. They also do it for market risk, which is one of the primary risk factors. The question now this throws this econometric situation, evolving economic situation throws is, do we want to really make the portfolio neutral to all of those factors? So the question really is, how can we intelligently choose some of those risk metrics where we have an informed decision and make our portfolio exposed to those risk factors in order to harness the returns? So that more astute understanding of risk monitoring and risk harnessing is where we can really make an edge in portfolio management and generate greater alphas. The other thing is just the introduction of artificial intelligence. It opens up a new playing field of leveraging new technologies, particularly the generative part of artificial intelligence. And while the significance in finance is still evolving, we are still trying to understand exactly where and which fields it can impact in a very concrete manner. It is very clear that it's going to have a major impact. I can see a number of avenues within my work as a portfolio manager where artificial intelligence can make a huge difference. And really, what will set different capital management firms apart will be their adoption of these new technologies and how astute they are in ushering in all of these new methodologies as part of an integrated systematic work of managing funds as opposed to doing it in one off in one little field or segment.
Having walked through both traditional versus non-traditional portfolio management, which approach would you pick to build your investment strategies and why?
I'm still firmly in the side of traditional portfolio management, primarily because it gives a greater visibility into how the portfolio is being managed, which gives me a greater leverage and greater amount of control at managing it if situation evolves. If, for example, uh, there are a variety of risks, which we typically do not take into account while modeling potential returns of our portfolios, like geopolitical risks, economic risks. Some of those might evolve and through a different situation. So I still feel the traditional portfolio management, where we look at different factors and build the portfolio according to the statistical methodologies, perhaps augmented by artificial intelligence, that still holds an edge. And it still holds an edge over passive investment strategies, which track an index or just invest based off of a rule of thumb. So there is still a lot of potential in generating superior alphas using traditional portfolio management, using active investment strategies. Now, I think the challenge is how to do it over the long term, and that's where the attraction of passive investment comes in. But with proper controls, with perhaps leveraging of artificial intelligence, which can recalibrate the models, we can come close to delivering those superior alphas that active investments yields over the long term.
Based on your interest in AI, let's explore the AI influence in portfolio management careers. How is AI transforming the profession of portfolio management?
AI is transforming portfolio management in a number of ways. The first one is it's throwing up a number of possibilities where we can leverage the potential of generative artificial intelligence. For example, right now we devise manual scenarios to gauge how a portfolio can perform in different situations, like if there is a potential downturn, if there is a potential credit squeeze. But those scenarios are very limited and those are designed by hand. Tomorrow, if, for example, we come up with an unforeseen circumstance like a stagflation, we typically do not account for it because the generated, handcrafted scenarios can only go so far. Generative artificial intelligence has the potential to generate a whole bunch of different scenarios which we have not thought of could materialize and that might potentially materialize. And it has the ability to then walk us through how the portfolio performs. Um, the second avenue, which I think is more important for generative AI, is to give us a more astute understanding of a risk. Typically, we quantify risk using volatility, and that volatility is a metric where we look at either historical or modeled variation in performance of the portfolio. But that there are many events which come up out of the corner, out of the blue, which we have not foreseen before. And the promise of generative AI is that it can look at a whole bunch of different economic variables, fundamental variables, technical variables, and how they interact with one another, and intelligently craft them into different scenarios, different situations, which we run through a modeling routine, can give us a very good understanding of how volatility can evolve. It can have very heteroscedastic behavior, it can jump around, and using that as a baseline, we can get a more accurate picture of how things might evolve in the future. The other aspect of artificial intelligence application in finance is more mundane in terms of automating things that have previously been done in a very manual fashion. For example, generating reports, just generating different signals out of news feeds, out of social media feeds. All of those are being worked out, and those are typically, the ones that will be addressed. I foresee in the first batch of rollout of artificial intelligence models in finance. So those will automate away most of the things that are being done either manually or as a combination of computers and human intervention. So all the news feeds, there will be intelligent ways of just filtering out aspects of news that are relevant for managing a certain portfolio, and then presenting them in uh, arranged format, where it can be processed by the model. That is the other piece. Now, one word of caution is that the artificial intelligence shouldn't be looked at as a panacea. There are things that it can do well, and there are things that it cannot do well at the moment. So we have to be very sanguine about what where we are applying it to, and it shouldn't be like a solution looking for a question. It should be the other way around. You should look for a question where it can be applied properly, and and then leverage it to find a complete solution for that problem.
How can quantitative portfolio management benefit from new AI technologies?
There are a number of ways in which we can use artificial intelligence in a way that makes actual difference and delivers alpha. The first one is to recognize that there are problems where AI is not effective. For example, AI is not effective at predicting returns when the models are using a small number of variables. For example, and this is a feature of financial data, that the data is scarce, unlike in application areas or such as in large language modeling, where data is huge, where there's a cornucopia of data. We have limited financial data, and that only restricts the number of degrees of freedom that we can involve in our models, which reinforces the need to build parsimonious models which can generalize well on data that is not seen during training. So with that in mind, that certainly restricts the number of parameters that we can use in a artificial intelligence model. And with all the deep neural nets that have a number of parameters, it reinforces the need to build models that are not too deep. But then still, the challenge is how do we leverage the benefits of that depth of the neural network, where it can combine all the nonlinear features in an intelligent manner. So it has to really be cognizant of this fact that data in finance is scarce, and there's a premium on building parsimonious models that can generalize well to unseen data. um, those are, I think, the areas where one must take into account the specificities of financial problem. If we can come up with a proper way of handling that, then AI is a very effective method, because it can effectively build a very non-parametric, non-linear model, which in traditional statistical methodologies is typically hard to do. Typically we linearize models, we simplify them and then solve them. AI has this ability to build non-linear models in a way that I don't even have the ability to formulate it, and that is one of the both promises and a challenge to understand it well, and then also to understand what are its shortcomings where it cannot be used. And then once we have a grip on that, then it can be used as a very effective modeling tool.
Moving on to advice for next-gen quants in portfolio management. How can new entrants into the field of applied science navigate toward portfolio management?
New entrants have a very good understanding of the statistical models and nowadays artificial intelligence models. But where I find the new entrants need a little bit of additional focus is the areas of application, to get an intuitive sense of how those models are actually interacting in the real world, to get a sense of what is risk, how that risk can be harnessed to turn into return, and how the different factors that go into modeling a portfolio are actually interacting with one another. For example, we build different portfolios that have exposure to different sectors. Sometimes we neutralize this exposure to sectors, sometimes we do not. When we do not, how does different factors of that model uh, induce changes in that risk exposure, which then translates into return? So understanding of that, the interaction of the models with the very actual way in which returns are being generated, and getting an intuitive sense of when it might be good to get an exposure to a different factor versus the other, is one of the ways in which new entrants can gain a better understanding and move gradually from where they are using their applied sciences to applying it in actual real world portfolio management. But it's a process. I know even the process of selecting portfolio is being thrown up, being modified so quickly, just because there are new assets now coming up, from crypto to different derivatives on those instruments, to different methodologies that are being coming up, thanks to artificial intelligence, and then different and the compute ability has been growing up exponentially because of the introduction of graphics chips and GPUs, and quantum computing is just being introduced in finance. So all of these new methodologies i- basically indicate that there's an imperative to learn them, and at the same time gain an understanding of how they are making a difference in the actual selection of portfolios.
Our wildcard question of the day. Transitioning from a software engineering role at Yahoo to becoming a vice president at JP Morgan represents a significant career shift. Could you walk us through the key factors that influenced your career path and motivated you to go into quant finance and portfolio management?
My motivations were mostly based on doing things that I'm interested in. Um, at an early age, when I was when I was doing my bachelor's, perhaps, I was interested in managing portfolios and in managing money. And I was also interested in applied science. And I know most of the students in math, physics, engineering majors would be able to associate with that. They typically want to do, they want to solve mathematical equations, they want to apply it in engineering, and they want to do something that has an impact. And at the heart, that was my motivation to how to leverage my skills of analysis, of numerical computation, uh, in a way that has a real impact on business, on what I'm doing. And that guided my transition first from an applied science engineering major towards first a technology company or in a hardware company, and then from there on to a financial services company, and from then on to portfolio management. It was always that drive to apply my skills on something that can make actual business value and generate returns for the company and for the firm.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel now and explore more insightful interviews with industry experts. Want more exclusive content? Join the CQF Institute for free to discover the latest innovations and events in quant finance. Become a member today.